People who have filmed weddings, what is the worst thing you've caught on camera and had to remove from the final video? Filming the father of the bride's speech. He mumbled his way through it. The guest in front of me said, "Well, that was fucking shit," and only then remembered I was behind him and sheepishly looked round. My dad is into photography as a hobby. He has a bunch of expensive cameras and loves shooting in all kinds of settings, so he volunteered to be a photographer at one of his co-workers' weddings. They had an actual professional photographer there as well, but decided to let my dad get in on the action, since he takes a damn good photo. He was snapping random shots all night and took a nice photo of the bride and groom dancing with some other couples. There were tables in the background of the photo and people eating on said tables. There, in the far back center table, was a man and a woman sitting at one of the tables. In the woman's hand was the man's dick. I guess she thought she would be able to jerk him off while everyone was distracted with alcohol and dancing. Both of them had straight faces, and you couldn't tell that anything was going on. They were background characters in the shot, so it wasn't noticeable if you weren't looking for it. My dad caught this when he was editing the photos and decided to just darken the background in a way that you couldn't see this dude's junk in his wife/girlfriend/random drunk woman's hand. He didn't delete it because it was a really good photo of the bride and groom and he really wanted to send it to his co-worker. He never told the co-worker about the whole penis part, and I believe the couple has the photo in their collection of framed wedding pictures. My mom filmed weddings for a long time. Once, the groom was so drunk he could barely dance with his new wife. He was stumbling all around, groping his new wife, and even grabbing her butt and thrusting. Super sexual bride-groom dance. The bride was so embarrassed. She was trying to settle him down with no success. This was obviously in front of all the family and guests. My mom made me watch as a lesson in self-control, respect, and humiliation. We made the mistake of deciding to set up ourselves on a tripod in the rear of the chapel and let it roll. The plan would have been brilliant if not for the fact it got bumped when someone walked past and was instead filming nice solid shot of one of the uncles fighting a particularly stubborn wedgie for far too long. Someone noticed it and adjusted it. Eventually, the father of the groom was making his speech and got to a touching part about his wife, mother of the groom, who had passed away recently. I was filming from the back, but got his sound okay, but there were a bunch of little kids near me playing quietly until one of them yelled, "Goddammit. Fuck you," right as the father was tearing up. Nobody seemed to notice, but it was plain as day on the tape, so I had to do a lot of delicate chopping on that one. Sister-in-law was trying to use the wedding photographer as a personal photographer or something to take pictures of her family. She absolutely denied it for 4 months until we watched the video from the videographer that caught her literally saying the bride said that she wants you to take pictures of families, so our photographer missed a good 20 minutes of the reception to take pictures of her and her family, and then came to us and was like, "Hey, we didn't discuss this," and tells me what the sister-in-law said. I go to her and she denies it all and says, "Oh, the photographer told us that she wanted take pictures of the family members, although it was only her and her family, which we weren't on good terms with. They weren't even invited." So months later we are sitting around watching footage, and just like a scene from The Office, you see and hear with perfect clarity, "Oh, the bride wants you to take pictures of the families, not the reception. We are ready when you are." And the sill is sitting in the corner of the room and stomps her way to the door and slams it as she leaves. Not me, but my buddy was the videographer for a wedding. During the ceremony, they had candles lining the aisle and the mother of the bride decided to get closer so she could get a better picture. While she was taking pictures, she started walking backwards. Well, she walked backwards right into one of the candle holders and knocked it over right into someone's lap. Commence chaos. Guy jumps up trying to put out the fire that's now in his lap. Guy's wife starts screaming at the women. Took about 20 minutes to get everything calmed down. Marriage went off without a hitch afterwards. And yes, it was all caught on camera. The bride insisted it be cut out of the final video, so my buddy put it on a separate tape for us all to laugh at later. It was my wedding, and we didn't have it removed, nor would we have, but the camera didn't pick up the audio. So when you look at the video, you see us making our vows, then the whole wedding party laughing. Then it continues. What happened was the ring bearer, a little boy about 3 or 4, during the vows, where I'm asked senior, do you take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife? And this kid says, not quietly, you mean he doesn't have to marry her? Lol. It just blew his mind that a guy would willingly marry a girl. This didn't have to be removed, and jokes were actually made about sending it to AFV. A number of years ago in my early 20s I went to my cousin's wedding. My father asked me to dance, and it was going quite well, until he asked to dip me. I said no. I was pretty big at the time, and figured he couldn't support my weight, and would drop me. He was rather disappointed, and the dance ended soon after. About 3 dances later I hear him calling my name across the dance floor. I look up, and he is gleefully dancing with my mother and shouts, hey, my name, this is how you dip someone. And promptly dips my mother and drops her straight onto the floor. All proudly caught on video and still referenced at every family wedding to this day. I used to videotape weddings for a few years. The funniest thing I ever saw I was during a dollar dance, aka honeymoon dance. A guest went to dance with the bride, gave her a $20 bill, and asked for change. At another wedding, they had little bottles of bubbles instead of rice, so that guests could blow bubbles on the couple as they left the church. One boy, about 10, would take a mouthful of bubbles and blow it out instead of using the little dipper. He made better bubbles than anyone. Don't think we took it out of the video, but it was funny. Catholic wedding, drinking of the wine at communion. There was quite a bit of wine left after everyone went through. Most times I've seen the priest just finish it. For some reason this guy wants the parishioners to finish it, but everyone is having a hard time figuring out what he wants. He wants everyone to go through again. Nobody gets it. My brother reaches over, takes the chalice and pounds the remaining wine. Lays it back on the altar. I didn't make it, but when we were at my cousin's wedding, my mother fell a total of 3 times. All 3 times, my dad, me, or my 2 other siblings weren't around, so we didn't really believe she kept tripping over her dress. That was until the next day, when she had a bruise the size of Eurasia on her thigh. We were left scratching our heads like how? Then the video for the wedding came out, along with bloopers. In the bloopers you see my mother hopping around with her friend, and doing bad Irish dancing when she lands, catches the hem of her dress, skids, and falls backwards over said friend, before baiting herself off the floor. Through the tears I felt bad, haha. I'm not a photographer, but saw the funniest thing get caught on camera during a wedding. We were in Jamaica and a couple was getting married on a crowded resort beach. A large drunk guy wades into the water and goes directly behind the bride and groom like 10 feet back. He keeps trying to get on one of those floating things anchored in the water and falling off again and again. The guests and people around are just watching this guy try to hold his drink, falling all over the place, floating around. It was hilarious and also really embarrassing to watch. Shot 1 with a husbandzilla. They were practicing a choreographed dance to a whole new world Disney songs are big right now. He flipped his shit because it wasn't perfect and said they weren't going to do the dance. She was obviously upset. I awkwardly left the room as it was just the 3 of us and the photographer. They did the dance and it was totally fine. Just seemed like such a stupid thing to flip out about, especially at your new wife on your wedding day. Ran into them at a bar sometime later and they didn't recognize me, but they both seemed happy. I filmed dozens of weddings. I put a wireless mic on the groom in a lot of cases, so I get everything he mutters before, during, and after the ceremony. Most of my cutting was audio related. Lots of guys' buddies telling them they have a chance to run series and not. My favorite though was walking down the aisle after the ceremony. The groom whispers to the bride, we're jetting it on as soon as we leave this church, and the bride gave him this hilarious look and were basically jogging out of the church. And everything the guests filmed on the video goose book was delivered, good or bad. Definitely had a drunk aunt go on a 15-minute tirade once, and lots of raunchy stories from drunk friends of the bride and groom, but nothing that stands out as too WTF. When my brother got married, I was one of the bridesmaids. It was a super fun wedding, but my sister-in-law, bride, got tanked during the reception. She threw up in the bathroom at one point. During the part where the bride throws the bouquet, we had to get her up there, hand her the flowers, and just tell her to throw. So, I'm in the crowd to catch it, and I'm pretty tall for a girl. 5 minutes and 10 seconds, so I'm the tallest there. She drunkenly throws it and it beelines to my face. Of course, the bouquet was made of succulents. I had cuts under my eye for about a week and my cousin had the entire thing on camera from a side angle. It looks like a comedy sketch. Also didn't get the bouquet either, because I was too preoccupied with getting hit in the face. Happened to my parents at their wedding, and didn't get removed from the video. When they got out of their limo, some kid on a bike came up to them and yelled, "Get the fuck out of here, you don't belong here." Kid must have been only 7 or 8 and the wedding was in my mom's hometown. Lol. The video from my wife's first wedding, not to me, is pretty funny. They got married in a theater, and the opening of the video is the people filing into the theater and finding their seats. Unknown to the groom and his wedding party backstage, they were mixed up, and so, while the theater is filling up, you can hear the groom talking. This is a fucking disaster. I reserved a Mustang to rent for my wedding pictures, and they sent me a fucking part cruiser. Your fucking shoes are all wrong. You have the wrong color of fucking stripe on your pants. And on it goes. Laid over the opening scene of the video. Totally unedited. *FOR people asking for the story. A version of it is in one of these threads. If you are already tired of reading, my wife and I have been reminiscing about things while this thread rolls along. And it has made her nostalgic, and now we are watching The Office, because the Jim and Pam relationship is close, except we didn't work together. My aunt had a camera floating around for anyone to use at her wedding. While my dad was filming, one of the bridesmaids spilled a bottle of red wine on the center table of the room. It knocked a bunch of stuff off the table as well as making the white tablecloth red. Well, my father was facing the wrong way. So when you watch the video there is a crashing sound, then my father spins around and says very clearly, "Fucking shit, I missed it," as the bridesmaids is scrambling to stop the chaos. Funniest part of that video by far. Obligatory not me, but there is a famous YouTuber who invited another YouTuber to her wedding. This other YouTuber ended up stealing thousands and thousands of dollars from her during the reception. She was going through the cards and collected all of the checks and cash given to her, something to the tune of $30,000. During the father-daughter dance, the videographer actually caught this girl stealing one of the bridesmaids' handmade brooch bouquets. In the background, you can actually see her taking the bouquet and shoving it into a backpack. She actually showed that part of her wedding video YouTube for everyone to see too. I know a lot of people might say this was just staged for drama, but the whole thing went to court, which is public record. Like 9 years ago, my cousin gave me a video camera and told me it was my job to record her wedding and reception. Yeah, no thanks, but I did it anyway even though I didn't want to. Well, during the reception, no one told me the layout of the wedding, when people would be speaking, etc. So I was basing it off another wedding I went to, but of course, they did things differently for this. I was a vegetarian at the time, and served dry pasta I couldn't eat, and subsequently got drunk rather fast. Oops. So I ran to pee and came back to find out my other cousin, bride's sister and maid of honor, was about to give her speech. I grabbed the camera and maybe missed like the very beginning. I may not have, I can't quite remember, but my cousin, the bride, later commented how shitty of a job I did. Maybe hire a professional, you cheap ass. And the reason I think they said I did a shitty job was because I was moving while recording my cousin's maid of honor speech. My cousin is not a great speaker. She has some learning disabilities and was incredibly nervous to speak, but she did it for her sister. And then the groom's friends/family at the table I was standing next to recording started making fun of her during her speech. So yeah, maybe the camera was shaky BC. I was trying to move away from those assholes. So you didn't have a recording of people making fun of your sister on your wedding day that were supposed to be there to support you and your husband. I couldn't edit the footage. BC, I don't know how/don't care. So I just gave them the whole thing. I'm not a videographer. If they should have asked anyone in the family, probably should have been my brother. He does that kind of thing. But whatever. I just hope they couldn't hear the groom's friends/family making fun of my cousin and her speech.